Ty, the way I explain it really, he was Gronk before Gronk, but without the sideshow. He was that good a player and was definitely on a Hall of Fame track until his knee he pretty much didn't have anything left of his knee. But you're talking about a guy being tough. In the first quarter of a game in '86 against the Saints, he broke his jaw, and the X-ray machines at Giant Stadium weren't sensitive enough to fully diagnose it. So basically, you'll just rub a little dirt on it and go back on the field. He shows up in the middle of the second quarter and is tapping Parcells on the shoulder and grunting to him because he can't talk because his jaw's broken. Again, it hadn't been officially diagnosed as being a broken jaw. And Parcells is telling me that, he knew what Bavaro was doing. He's hitting me on the back and grunting, and he means he wants back in the game. And he scored a touchdown at the end of the second quarter. The Giants were down 17-0, and that touchdown brought him back, and they won the game. Next day, he goes to the dentist. He's got a broken jaw. Gets his jaw wired shut, doesn't miss a game, is eating eggplant parmesan on a blend, in a blender.
I love that part. That was great.
I wonder what that tasted like. Eggplant parmesan in a blender. I don't know. But, Mark, the funny thing, his nickname was Rambo. He
didn't like it. Yeah, he hated that nickname, you said.
And I didn't know that until he was telling me the story because I don't know if I'm getting this right. Rambo was, Sylvester Stallone played him, and he was a war veteran from Vietnam, maybe.
Yeah. Yep.
And Mark had an uncle and a cousin who were in the military who fought in Vietnam, and he thought it was disrespectful that they called him Rambo. But the thing was, they didn't call him Rambo because he was tough. It was the first day that the veterans were really around him in minicamp, his rookie year, and they called him Rambo because he kind of looked like Stallone. It wasn't because they said, "Oh, this is the toughest guy I've ever been around." They didn't know that yet. So it was just because he looked like him. And as much as Mark hated the nickname, that if the players find out you hate a nickname, you got no shot of losing that nickname. So they kind of stuck with him his entire career. But he was just a really quiet, reserved guy at that point in his life. He told me a story that when his kids saw an interview that he did at the Super Bowl in '86, his daughter said to him, "Dad, you didn't know how to talk." And it was, he just wasn't into it. Ty, on Tuesday, now it's Monday nights, they call it Media Day at the Super Bowl. It used to be called Photo Day. So Tuesday of Super Bowl week, the Giants' Photo Day was at the stadium where the Angels play, and I think the Rams were playing there as well. And so Marcus told it's Photo Day. But it was a misnomer, really, because after the team photo was taken, then they set these guys up. It's not elaborate like it is now with all the podiums, but the players would be scattered in different spots, and you'd have a chance to interview them. Bavaro went right to the bus, and they tried to get him off the bus, and they said, "What are you doing on the bus?" They said, "Well, they said it was photo day. I already had my picture taken, and now I'm on the bus." And he didn't come out and do any interviews.
Little different than Jeremy Shockey and Rob Gronkowski and everything we see in the position today. And I mean, so that season, that '86 season, it's year 2 for Mark Bavaro. He catches 66 passes for 1,001 yards, 4 touchdowns, first team All-Pro, Pro Bowl, even got some MVP votes, it looks like. He was on track to be an all-time great.
Yeah.
Has some health issues, living legend in New York. I mean, New York can just relate to this guy, right? The blue collar, the way he played, the play against San Francisco when he runs through the whole defense.
Yeah. He epitomized the blue collar mentality in this area. And you're just referring to, he dragged the 49er defense including Ronnie Lott, who was riding piggyback on him, for like 15 yards. And that play really symbolized the type of team that was, and it really symbolized the season with that Giant team, what was really all about. Mark, I mean, that was just an amazing play. But, one of the funniest stories, maybe my favorite funny story in the book, and there's a bunch of them, is Bavaro's rookie year. Now, he was a pretty good drinker at Notre Dame, which I don't know if many people knew that. Drank too much probably, and he would probably tell you that too. So his rookie training camp at Pace University in Westchester, which is actually about 4 miles from where I live, they finally get the first night off in training camp. He had been there for the rookie part of the training camp, and then the veterans come in, and then Parcells gave him a night off. So they had a team barbecue, and I'm sure he drank a little bit of that. And then they knew his roommate was going to be cut the next morning. They had gotten word on that. So they wanted to go out and celebrate this guy. So they go bar hopping in town here in Pleasantville. And they wind up at a place called Michael's Pub, which was a fun sports bar kind of place. And Bavaro got blank-faced that night. I don't know if we can say that word.
Oh, we could go ahead, yeah.
He got shit-faced that night. And so he's throwing a guy over the bar who probably just looked at him the wrong way, literally tossed the guy over the bar, punched his hand through a wall, was out of his mind because he was drunk. And so he was permanently banned from Michael's. The campus, Pace University, is maybe 2 miles from the bar. So he goes back, and they don't have a practice the next morning. They had a team meeting and a practice in the afternoon. The Turk comes and knocks on the door to have his roommate bring the playbook to Parcells because they knew the guy was going to be cut. Mark slept through that. He slept through the team meeting, and then was able to drag his ass out of bed. Now that I know I can curse on this, I can tell the story.
Oh, yeah. It's encouraged.
Yeah. So he drags his ass out of bed, gets to the locker room, gets dressed for practice, and is just dragging. I mean, he was really in bad shape. And he knows he's totally dehydrated. So I don't know how much water he drank or Gatorade, but it was a lot. And he's running his pass routes, and he's not sweating at all. So he knows the fluids that he's intaking are not doing the job. And all the players knew that he was completely hungover. And they're waiting for him to quit. And he said, I'm not quitting. I'm a rookie. I'm not quitting. I can't let those guys see that side of me. Well, after a while, he just couldn't do it. So he calls Ronnie Barnes over, the trainer, and Ronnie was a great protector of players. And I'm sure Ronnie knew that he was hungover. So the locker room was just a few feet off of the edge of the practice field. So it was really, really close. So Ronnie is walking Bavaro to the locker room, and they're going to try to give him some IV fluids. And on their way over, they've passed right by Parcells. And Parcells goes, "What the fuck is the matter with this guy?" And Ronnie goes, he's just dehydrated. And Parcells goes, "The fuck he is. He's drunk." And almost as he got the words out of his mouth, Bavaro threw up on Parcells' shoes.
That's amazing.
Which is not the way. I know he's a 4th round pick, and the Giants were building a roster, so he wasn't going to get cut. But it's not really the way you want to impress your new boss, is throwing up on his shoes. And I knew he was not embellishing that story, but I had to run it by Parcells, who admitted that's exactly what happened. And
what did Parcells do? Like when that happens,
he didn't get fined, and he didn't even buy Parcells a new pair of cleats. In fact, Mike Pope, who you mentioned before, goes up to Bavaro at the team meeting that night, and Mark is distraught that he just puked all over Parcells' shoes. And he goes, you know what? Let's look at it this way. I think you might have ingratiated yourself to the veterans on this team. And from that point forward, Mark he was kind of a cult figure. But imagine that, a rookie throwing up on a future Hall of Fame coach's shoes and wanting, living to tell about it in football terms. He didn't get cut.